welcome to Our Conversations, a cousins reunion that started with us getting together, but due to the pandemic and social distancing, we started meeting via Zoom to keep the tradition alive. And now we want to share our conversations with you.
So today's topic is COVID-19 vaccinations, something that many of us have been thinking about the last 2 years. And I found a fact on usafact.org, which says that as of October 25th, 58% of Americans are fully vaccinated. So what happens when we share our opinions and perspectives on topics? As always, we respect everyone's perspectives and opinions, especially on a topic like this one. And we hope that these conversations not only educate and enlighten, but also encourage you to have these conversations, sometimes tough conversations, with your own family and group of friends.
Yes, and today's topic is definitely one that we will have a lot of answers for and a lot of opinions of the different questions. And let's just keep an open mind. And just, I know for me, I know that I didn't interview anybody, so I have no idea what other people out in this world or in our country or even within my community really thinks about this topic. But I chose to get vaccinated, and I chose to get vaccinated because I wanted to protect myself and my family once I started to understand that it was a deadly virus, that it was affecting immune systems, and it was affecting people, being able to breathe and just overall a respiratory illness, that they would basically just stop breathing and die. It was a very scary, just a very situation as far as the pandemic and lockdown. So I chose to get vaccinated, and I chose to trust the medical professionals and the scientists. And the way I saw it for me was just, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not in that field. I'm not, a scientist in regards to like being an expert on viruses. So I had a decision to make, right? And so I chose to get vaccinated. And, for me, I see this pandemic almost like an alien invasion, right? So when I thought about this, I started laughing because I was like, well, if you were told that there was an alien invasion and you went outside and people were disappearing, right? They were just being like zapped and disappeared into thin air. And the people who were protecting you were telling you, hey, you're going to have to grab, some type of weapon of mass destruction, and you're going to have to take a special potion to protect yourself from these aliens who are here to pretty much invade our earth for their own, purpose of survival. And they're trying to spread themselves out to get everybody and take over. So I see the pandemic in that sense, that I saw that this coronavirus was serious, and I needed to protect myself and trust that the ways that were, just recommended to mask up, wash, disinfect, social distancing, and also vaccinating. So, Crystal, did you choose to get vaccinated?
I did, and I chose to trust the science is really what it came down to. I know that there were many trials that were done. I know that I wasn't the first adult to receive the vaccination. And so by the time that I did, I know that many thousands, maybe even millions of people had already been vaccinated before I was. And some people thought that maybe it wasn't enough or that it had happened so quickly. I just chose to feel and believe that enough people had gone through it to give the rest of us the feedback that we were hoping for and needing. And so, yes, I did that. I wanted to protect myself. I wanted to protect my kids, because especially at the time, it was just for adults. And my biggest motivating that was my biggest motivation. My second motivation was being able to envision a day where I could go back to my job, and being taken away from my students, especially at my school. And I venture to say this is true for a lot of teachers. Your students feel like your kids, and all of a sudden you're pulled away from them. And what we thought was 2 weeks essentially became almost 2 years. And so part of my motivation for getting vaccinated was with the hope that one day I could be back in the classroom and interact with students and learn with students the way that I've always done it, and the way that is normal, so to say, which what is normal anymore, right? So that's why ultimately I chose to decide it. My kids and my second kids who are not biologically mine, just being able to go back to my job, which is a big part of my identity and what I love to do. What about you, Vanda? Did you decide to get vaccinated?
I did. Um, my reason was kind of like yours. Um, my main reason was because of my grandson, my family members. You know, my mother. I see her a lot. She's older, um, and let's face it, it was basically our elderly population that was being affected by it more. So, and I am around a lot of elderly people at my work as well. Um, the other thing with work is that a lot of the doctors that I work with, also go into the hospital. They do procedures, you know, they see patients. Um, there's a high chance that, you know, they could be infected. And we all know just because you're vaccinated doesn't necessarily mean you can't get the virus. And um, I just wanted to be able to be okay, even if I did contract it, so that, you know, I wouldn't be one of the ones that died from it. Because let's face it, it wasn't just the elderly. We found out after a while it wasn't just sick people, it was, you know, healthy individuals also. So that was my main reason. And I chose also to trust in the science and the medical people. I know that, you know, the vaccine, like most people are saying, it was created too quickly. Um, but uh, even though it was, I think that they took a lot of safety precautions. Um, so at least that's what I think. So that's why I did it.
Mm.
And so the other thing would be my next question would be, why might some people not be vaccinated? And if you're not, what might be the things you can do to minimize the risks for other people? So I think a lot of it is that they don't trust our government, that it was, you know, made very quickly. And you know, um, I've heard all kinds of things like, you know, they put a chip in the vaccine, which I just don't even see how that's possible. But if that's what you're worried about, then what about your phone, your computer, your TV? Because essentially they're tracking you there. So if that's your only vice there for not taking it, then I'm safe to say you could probably take it, because your phone's following you around everywhere. You
Mm.
probably have it in your back
Yes.
pocket every day. You know, it's in your purse. Wherever you go, it's with you. So, um, you know, some people I think just don't trust the government. I don't even think it's so much the science. You know, they feel like these scientists work for the government. So, you know, what are they really? Are they really looking out for them? Um, you know, some people just think there isn't even a virus. So,
Mm.
how are you going to convince somebody to get a vaccine when they don't even think it exists?
Mm.
So, I think that you could minimize the risk by wearing a mask, you know, washing your hands for 20 seconds. That's what they tell us at work, at least 20 seconds. You know, just be mindful when you're around other people. Even if you're vaccinated, like I go to the store, I wear a mask because it's a large crowd. You don't know if somebody's vaccinated or not. People aren't stopping to ask you, hey, you vaccinated? You know, so I'm walking in a store and I have to guess that somebody might or might not have it. I just don't trust people that much. So, you know, I do wash my hands. I wear my mask still, and I just hope for the best at this point. I guess is all
Mhm.
that we can do. What about you, Eliana?
I agree with everything you're saying. And I just hope that those who choose not to get vaccinated or opposed to being vaccinated, that they're aware of all of the different precautions that they can take, and that they care enough about us, you know, and others to basically try to take those precautions that they can take. I think some of them that are opposed might have had a traumatic experience with a medical procedure or a medical professional who didn't either follow through appropriately, didn't treat them appropriately, or whatever the procedure was, it didn't, it affected them. You know, sometimes you can go into a hospital for one thing. You know, I've heard where they go, like someone will go and get an operation and then have an infection, and then it just kind of turns into something more. So that was one of the things I definitely thought about, that some people just might not, they just might not want to trust medical professionals because of something that's happened to them in the past. Some people might be afraid of any type of like serious allergic reaction. I know that what I read in the CDC website was, you know, a lot of the myths and facts. There's, you know, one of them is like, oh, you know, if I get a serious allergic reaction, is it going to affect, you know, is it going to affect my, like my DNA, you know, like, so they're very concerned about it affecting themselves, their body, their being, their person. So they just don't want to take the chance. Some of them, I think, are just pretty much putting their foot down and saying, I have the civil right to not want to have to take this vaccine, and you're just not going to force me. But I have to say that I also, just from learning a little bit about this, the whole pandemic and how it's affected different people, there are those who are opposed to the vaccine, and then they got sick and ended up with COVID in the hospital, you know, and now they're like so happy that they made it and that they're still alive, and they're like, well, if only I knew. So I think it's the same, like, you know, I'm just going to go on with this idea of, if the aliens are like basically taking the world by storm and you're seeing people literally disappear right in front of you, you're going to want to do whatever it takes to protect yourself. You're not going to stand there and be like, no, they really don't exist. And no, people aren't disappearing, or no way, you know, this weapon that they're giving me to shoot them if they come after me just isn't going to work. So why bother? Or they're not going to win and take over. I think that there's a lot of people who are just trying to be in denial, and they think that if they deny the fact that getting vaccinated or protecting themselves, more than just the regular, you know, washing of hands, masking up, cleaning their environment or places that they've sat or used, that it's going to be okay. But I think they're being a little bit in denial because they're using all of the reasons for why they should oppose the vaccine, instead of looking at how it could actually, again, protect themselves and their families and communities. So what do you think, Crystal? What do you think? Why are they opposing vaccination?
Right. So to build on top of what Vanda said, the first thing that came to mind for me was the history of Americans not trusting their government. But I'm going to take it one step further. And yes, I'm going to bring in the concept of race. Looking at the same website that I mentioned earlier, usafacts.org. And I was looking at the bar graph earlier, and I'm not surprised to see that the lowest percentage of people who are vaccinated are Black or Hispanic / Latinos. And there's so many things that we could probably say about that. But I guess I would say that, you know, when you look at marginalized groups in this country, there are so many ways in which they have been oppressed. over time. It's just such a long history of it. And that's a whole nother topic for another day. And so like Eliana said, there's so many reports already done about how people who are considered minorities, how they may have not had equal care when it comes to the medical system. So or the medical care system. So when you think about that, it's easy to see why some people would say, I'm not going to trust anything that comes out of the medical field. I don't have good experiences with my primary care physician or whatever it is. So when it comes to this big, crazy thing that's happening out there in the world, I'm just not going to trust them for that either. And so I can see why there was a fear and a concern behind things. The only other thing that I would just question people to think about is just, anybody, no matter what your like race is, anybody could have medical complications. But we also know that certain conditions affect certain races. We know when it comes to, for example, the African American community, the Hispanic Latino community, there's higher rates, and I'm sure you've seen this, Vanda, and you know more than we do, of obesity, of high blood pressure, and all of that. And even though it's been less than 2 years, we know enough to know now that if you contract COVID and you already have other issues, underlying issues, the chances of you getting sicker are higher. The chances of you passing away are higher. And so the percentage or the group of people who are least vaccinated in a lot of ways should be concerned about being unvaccinated because maybe for 30, 40, 50 years of your life, you were able to deal with a certain medical condition and you were able to live pretty okay and not have to worry about it. And all of a sudden you contract COVID and 2 weeks later you're gone. It's just something to consider. We know that I can understand, right? The three of us decided to get vaccinated. I can understand why some people are hesitant. The only thing that I will add, and it was something that actually happened this past weekend. A friend of ours who is not vaccinated got COVID. They messaged our group of friends saying, hey, I'm not going to see you this weekend because I got COVID. Everyone was super, super like concerned and expressing like empathy and saying, hey, I hope you feel better. Thanks for letting us know. And that was a good thing that they did as far as communicating with us. For me, I took it like, I feel bad that you have COVID, but also thank you for thinking of your group of friends and saying, I'm not going to be around you because I care enough about you to like not come around. The downside, and I appreciate this friend for this, if they ever watch this video, but the downside of it was all of a sudden everyone got into like a little bit of a panic mode and they had to cross-reference who was with who and who did they go home to and who needs to test. So not everybody, but a lot of people over the next 2 or 3 days went out and got themselves tested to prove that they were negative so that they could be together. And so while we were appreciative of that friend for giving us the heads up and not coming around, it caused a trickle effect for everybody else. And it made things a little tricky. And so I know some of the concerns was, well, if this person is unvaccinated and they're hanging out with us knowing that we all have families to go back home to, is that right? Is that okay? So that's the tricky part in this, as far as how can unvaccinated people stay safe? We already talked about social distancing and masking, but then, it's very difficult because essentially what you might be asking someone is like, okay, don't live a life, don't go socialize, don't do anything. But I don't have the answer to that, but it is something that unvaccinated people need to think about. You just have to move differently. If you're going to go hang out with a group of friends and you're unvaccinated because it's your choice to be unvaccinated, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should also be like at every social event, unmasked, like,
I agree.
Hey, I'm all up in your face. I'm all huggy with you. You need to think about that. Like, there are ways that you can move differently to keep yourself safe and your friends safe. So I'll pause there. But the question I have for you ladies is about employment. So as I'm sure you all know, in Rhode Island, and I'm sure this has happened in other places, but in Rhode Island, I think back in August, they made a law essentially, or a mandate that you had to be, medical, like licensed medical facilities, that the employees had to have proof of their last dose by October 1st in order to keep their jobs. So I know this affected a lot of people in the medical profession. So I'm interested to hear what Vanda has to say about this. But my question to you is, do employees have the right to do employers have the right to require their employees to be vaccinated in order to keep their jobs? I know this is a hot topic, like lately, a hot button issue. And even though it's so tricky, right? And I'm probably going to sound like I'm saying, I don't know, sound like a hypocrite maybe, but even though I made the choice to be vaccinated, I have a hard time with thinking that like an employer should force you to put something in your body. Now you're talking about putting something in your body, even if we feel like, hey, it's safe and it's trusted in the science, which I do feel. There's something that doesn't sit right with me about an employer saying, if you don't get this vaccine, if you don't inject this thing in your body, you can't work here. I struggle with that. I believe in the science. I decided to get vaccinated. I'm grateful that my job doesn't require that of me. I would feel really strange if my principal said, you have to get vaccinated or you can't teach these kids. So I really do struggle with that. And again, I made the choice to get vaccinated, but I feel it makes me feel uncomfortable to think of any employer saying, go get this thing or you can't work here. So it's very tricky, but I'm gonna just pass it to you, Eliana.
Wow, that's a loaded question, definitely. I agree with a lot of what you said, Crystal. And I thought of, the way that I would answer that question is, it's a yes and a no. And it depends. I don't know if it's a question that can be answered by just a yes and a no. I think it also depends. So I thought of how employers have a responsibility to keep their employees safe, to keep their constitution, the public safe. So I thought of, a lot of times to be employed, you have to agree to have them run a query on you. You might have to have a fingerprint. So you made a good point, Crystal, in that it's more of a in your body situation. It's something that somebody has to decide to take into their body. Mm-hmm. So that makes it very controversial because the employer has a responsibility to keep everybody safe. And with how deadly this virus has become, especially as it's mutated into these different variants, I think that it just puts us in a lot of risk as employees if other employers have the opportunity to basically not get vaccinated, and then put a lot of other people at risk. And I just wanted to go back to what you said, Crystal. One of the things that I thought of that people who are opposed to vaccination can do is inform others when they're in a social setting that they're not vaccinated, before they even get, before they have symptoms, before they think they need to go get tested. I think that would be it's a nice thing to do, just to let people know, hey, I'm going to that place, but I want you, I'm not vaccinated. So just like we have to wear a sticker, I got vaccinated today, maybe we need to say, it's a choice. I chose, because I think the question that I was posing is, choose. We have the right to choose. And if you choose not to get vaccinated, we might have to be able to say, okay, you have to inform somebody.
That's so hard, because I'm just feeling like anyone who's watching this, I'm feeling them saying that's not your business.
I know.
It's so
and
tricky. I'm feeling people looking at it saying, it's not your business. I shouldn't have to say to you, I'm unvaccinated. It's my body. It's my right. It's my choice. I shouldn't have to tell you. Maybe you don't have to tell me that you are vaccinated. So
I
yeah,
agree. I agree. That's why I said then, and then the other part of my answer would be no, right? There's civil rights, and you here in America, they have protective rights to choices that we can make, specifically because we live in a democracy, and civil rights and freedoms are things that we have to protect us to be able to make a decision whether we do or not. So for me, I would say that if the employer then has these responsibilities, the least that they can do is provide information, and keep everybody aware. I know I work in a school, and statistical data is something that's always available to us. We're always informed, for as much as where we need to know, we're informed, so that those that aren't vaccinated then can be more aware of, okay, what percentage of children are getting COVID, or how many people have to go on sick leave because they need to get tested, and what are the statistical data for just the district, So I think that the employers themselves have a big responsibility. And so it's a tricky question, because my other answer is it depends, right? So if it's a school, it depends, because now we have to protect children. If it's a hospital, sure, I could see how other employees, or even the owners or people who are administrators of those types of institutions might want to mandate it. But if you're working let's say you're working for a waste company, and your job is just to work at the dump, making sure that the trash is separated between, what's trash, what's recycling. Do you need to get vaccinated? So Vanda, what do you think?
So I agree with some of what you said and some of what Crystal said. At the end of the day, you have a responsibility to other people, though, right? So like Crystal said, if your friend's not vaccinated and he's going around or she's going around hugging people, kissing people, just being around everyone, you're not vaccinated, and there's a virus out there that's spreading, you're not wearing a mask, I'm vaccinated and I'm trying to keep myself and my family safe, why do you get to just spread this virus around to me and my family? Where do you draw the line, right? So it's okay for you to not be vaccinated, and it's okay for you to have your civil rights be, okay. But at the same time, what happens to mine?
Oh, yeah.
Right? So
yes,
I have a right to stay alive.
That's right.
You're going around spreading this virus and you don't care. What do I get to care about your rights? I mean, At the end of the day, we're all adults, right? So like Eliana said, if you're going to choose to not be vaccinated, I agree. If you're working at a place where you're not around a lot of people, maybe your employer doesn't have the right to make you get vaccinated. But then if you're that person, like Crystal said, who's out there partying, being around people, does it matter where you work? It doesn't, because you're still out there mingling with other people. So my thing is, if you don't want to be vaccinated, that's fine, but then be responsible. Wear a mask, wash your hands, and do whatever it takes so that you're keeping the ones around you safe, right? Because I'm vaccinated. I want to stay healthy. I want to keep my family members healthy. I'm doing my part to keep you healthy, but you don't care, so I'm supposed to care about your rights? I don't think that's fair. So while I get why people don't want it to be mandated, we've had other vaccines in this world that have been. I was talking to a family member who is not vaccinated and had COVID, right? Now, he's being responsible, staying in the house, distancing, whatever. Or, She doesn't go out and do stuff, right? But the people they're with are going out doing stuff, right? So while you're being responsible, the person you're living with is not. Just because they don't have it or think they don't have it, they might have been tested, which, by the way, if you're getting a rapid test, try not to. Try to get the PCR one, because the rapid test really doesn't work that well.
Mhm.
A lot of people that I know have gotten it, and it said they were negative, but then they got the PCR and they were positive. So it's not really reliable.
Mhm.
That being said, so now these people are out there. I may not have it, but now I'm spreading it everywhere because I'm a carrier, right? So I think we as people need to just not think about ourselves. We need to think about each other. We need to think about our kids. I think if it came out at the beginning, like, hey, this is killing our children, you have to get vaccinated, I think the whole planet would be vaccinated. But because it was elderly people, they're old, who cares? They're dying anyway. Yeah, we're just not going to get vaccinated.
That's awful. Shout out to the
That is-
grandmothers and grandfathers
Yes.
out there. Like,
It's
Yes.
awful. It
Yes.
is terrible that we as a world think that way.
yeah.
We're okay with protecting our children, but we're not okay with protecting our elderly. Like someday we're going to be these old people.
Yes.
Sure will.
Yes.
So
I think, yes,
I don't-
I agree. Yes. And
I
it,
don't understand. I do. I have a hard time.
I remember at the beginning of the pandemic.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I really do. I feel like if we came out and had said, yeah, it's killing our children, everyone would be vaccinated by now. They wouldn't care what our government said, how fast it was produced, and none of that. I don't know. I don't think that, I feel like people are selfish, and that's just my personal opinion. If you're one of those people that you're not vaccinated, but you take all of those precautions, then I'm okay with you. I'm okay with you because you're going to be at a party with a mask on. You're going to be washing your hands. You're going to be probably not sitting right on top of me, hugging me, being irresponsible, So I'm okay with those people not being vaccinated, yes. But most people out here are not doing that, which is why I'm vaccinated. I still wear them.
Yes. There are those people that are in denial. So, the people who are thinking that there's some type of copper or whatever, like you said, Vanda, in the actual vaccine, and the people who are not trusting the government. So they're in so much denial, then maybe that in itself is a form of selfishness, because they're denying the truth and all of the facts that are out there to serve their own selfish need that says that, this thing really isn't real. It's really not that serious. I'm not going to take it that serious. Yeah. And I agree with you that it's a very selfish point of view not to think of it as we're a global community. This is not something that's just happening in America. Right. It's a global community. So thinking about our earth and thinking about,
it's even worse if you're a person who actually believes that there is a virus and you're going out there and you're not wearing a mask, you're not really taking care to protect other people around you. I think that makes you worse than the person who doesn't even believe in this virus and isn't being vaccinated, because then you're selfish. And people can be mad, they can call me whatever you want. That is my opinion. If you're worried about, if you're not worried about other people and this virus is killing people, there's a potential you could have it, but you're not masking up, you're not washing up, you're not doing anything to minimize your risk of spreading this to other people that you may care about, live with, whatever, or, you're my friend and I'm vaccinated, I'm worried about it, then why should I care about your rights? If you don't care about my health, where do we draw the line? So I just,
we've talked about social media. I'll let Crystal go soon, but I was just going to say, we've talked about social media and we've talked about how a lot of this information is at the tip of our fingers. So I would think that now right? Those that are opposed to vaccines and those who are choosing not to get vaccinated would some way, somehow find a way to learn a little bit more. Because just like we're curious to learn about what people who are opposed to vaccination might think or feel, and we want to try to understand them, it needs to happen for us as well. That, you know, hey, I'm choosing not to get vaccinated, but let me understand what's really going on. And like Vanda said, take all of these different precautions, which again, what I'm proposing is you also let me know, hey, I'm not vaccinated. So if I go and hang out with you, I know I can protect myself by staying 3 feet away. I can protect myself if you forget and you get a little bit too close.
Or, you know, I can wear my mask, although I'm still protecting you in the long run, and you're still not protecting me, because that's how the mask works. I don't think people even realize that, you know. It just, I don't know, it takes a village, right? As they say. So you can't just expect people, or some people were just waiting to see how it went before they got the virus. Now, if you're saying 58% of people,
58% of Americans.
So then, I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of selfish people out there. You know,
what do you think?
Like Eliana said, well, at the end of the day, you have the information. There's Google. There's all kinds of stuff. There's no tell me that now that's millions of people that are vaccinated, right? Around the world. How many is that? I don't even have a number, but it's a whole lot. So at this point, it's not, the government's not trying to kill us with this vaccine.
Right.
So you know.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, just like for any topic that we discuss, we're always looking to be informed, right? So just for every single one of us, whether you're vaccinated or not, continue to do the research. Don't rely on other people to tell you what is, right? Like, we're sharing our opinions, of course, right? And we're 3 people, but we still should all seek to inform and educate ourselves always. And look at opposing opinions. Always be willing and be open-minded to listen to both sides.
And like I said, I don't mind if you are not vaccinated. I don't feel like you should be forced into it. But at the same token, there are selfish people out there who aren't doing their part to keep me safe, or you safe, or those of us who want to be safe. So, you know, we do have to look at it at all angles. And I'm just not going to look at it at your point of view, and you not look at it in my point of view, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, I think we had a great conversation here. Great topic. You know, I'm sure, you know, when our friends watch this, a lot of them are going to have a lot of opinions, but
that's okay. We welcome it.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you know, feel free to tell me I'm wrong. Feel free to tell me what you think. It's fine. I'm always here to hear what everybody has to say. So long as, like I said, you're respectful of my life, I will be of yours. So, you know, as, you know, we come to a close, everyone just make sure you hit the like button.
Click, 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 click.
And thank you, everybody.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, cousins, for joining. And thank you for listening to us have this really profound discussion, really controversial discussion about COVID vaccines. And so until next time.
I'm Eliana.
I'm Vanda.
I'm Crystal. And this is our conversations.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.